Hello. I'm going to do a little short video review of the movie Elysium. Sorry about the background and the lighting and stuff, but I don't have a proper camera, and I've got my little trusty treadmill here behind me, which gives me wings. But I live in Britain, and the houses here are tiny. Well, unless you're lucky enough to live in a gigantic house, but most people here, we have the smallest houses in Europe, but there you go. Anyway, I'm going to do a little video review of Elysium, a sci-fi movie with Matt Damon as Max, Jodie Foster as Delacourt, the baddie, or a baddie woman, and Sharlto Copley of District 9 as Kruger, a sort of psychopathic hitman. The film is set some 150 or so years in the future, when the Earth is sort of hopelessly polluted, overpopulated. It's a ruined slum. Looks much like the slums of South Africa, as depicted in District 9, actually, where the aliens were sort of corralled. In this case, it's humanity, the sheeple, the common people, who are corralled on the Earth. The posh people, the rich people, live in Elysium, the space station. And it's worth mentioning, Elysium is the name that the Greeks gave to their heaven. It was reserved for gods and heroes, and that in a way is summing up the message of the film. That is, if we see the slum-ridden Earth as the overexploited, crime-ridden, rubbishy places of today, like Mexico, or some of Mexico, the worst parts of South Africa, and really the ghettos all over the world, where really the ordinary people have some, but not much chance. I mean, in the Earth depicted in this movie, they got almost no chance. And Elysium is like, the wealthiest parts of the USA, the Hamptons or something, or Monaco, even better. Places where the millionaire and playboys and whatnot can live their detached lives, not knowing anything about how ordinary people live, and probably caring even less in many cases. So we think. So that's the metaphor of the film. It's the Earth, exaggerated, but not that much. I think if you lived in the shanty towns of South Africa, you would recognise it, really. Going by what I've seen of them, I've only visited South Africa once, and that was many, many years ago. And I saw. This was in the days of apartheid, and I went to Cape Town, and it was a nice, wealthy town, very clean, very nice, but black children were fishing in the dustbins, and they were actually pleased, in this case, when I saw some. They pulled out a banana peel, something to eat. So that's a system that doesn't work, one of many. So anyway, in the film Elysium, I think the idea is that the super rich see themselves as gods and heroes, and the poor people risk their lives to fly to Elysium, escape the Earth, and they try to get through. They obviously you need passports and visas and stuff, and they just try to smuggle or sneak in, which of course is a bit difficult. It's a bit like the Mexicans trying to get across the US border. The people of the slums in the movie speak Spanish most of the time, so rather a lot like the Mexicans trying to sneak across the US border. Whereas the elite in Elysium, although they speak English for the sake of the movie, when chatting amongst themselves a bit, they use French, the traditional language of the aristocracy. So this is not an accident. You don't need to have Spanish and French in an English movie, right? Most movies, everybody speaks English. even aliens from thousands of years in the future end up speaking English, so it's deliberate. And why is it like this? I think it's a message. The movie is saying we, the sheeple, the ordinary people, the stupid, undereducated, poor, are being ruled by a corrupt and evil elite. I think the film is reminding us, especially with the frequent use of violence in the film, like the violent police robots who break Max's arm when he resists them marginally, that actually, although we don't recognise in our day-to-day lives, we are actually ruled by force. If you disobey the government, they will come, and they will try and reason with you sometimes, but ultimately they will drag you off, and in many countries they will simply shoot you. The United States being a typical one. I think there are more shootings by police than there are by criminals over there. And that's saying a lot, because they have a lot of shootings. So, our great and good leaders rule us by force, and not by consent, which is so often claimed. I mean, it's said that our democracies are a government by consent, and it's not so much consent, it's more acquiescence. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote about the social contract. This film, and a lot of conspiracy theorists indeed, are saying that this social contract is a moral fraud. And even philosophically speaking, how can you be party to a contract that you've never read, you haven't signed it, and you have no possibility of renegotiating it whatsoever? That is not a contract, that is an offer you cannot refuse. And the movie is quietly reminding us about this. I mean, most people perhaps won't even think about it, but it's there. So we are being farmed for the wealthy elite, and we go to work and we earn our money for them, basically. They go to their expensive summer homes and have their playboy lives, and hard luck to the rest of us. That's the idea. And maybe it's not so inaccurate in a way. Most movies, you have the bad guys are like corporate bosses and so on. In this one, they are, but they're not the real ones. It's the aristocrats, the real leaders behind the politicians, the proper hereditary elite, if you like, who have not gone away, especially in Britain. I mean, whether you accept that, I don't know, but it looks to me that that's what the director is saying, or the writer at least, of this movie. Does it work as a movie? Next question, really. Well, the acting is good. Sharlto Copley as Kruger is great. Considering in this movie he's playing like a tough guy, a hitman, and a muscle-bound brute, and yet in District 9 he was kind of an intellectually stunted wimp. It's quite surprising, actually. He's pretty good. Matt Damon, Jodie Foster, they do their usual sterling Hollywood-style work. They're up to date. They're good standard of acting by Hollywood standards. They're pretty good. Special effects, of course, were great. The Elysium space station looks fantastic, and I really, really hope, being a sci-fi fan, that they build loads of these things and we can all move up there. Of course, I want to be one of the rich people at least, but maybe I can get up there on a YouTube visa or something. I don't know. There were some strange bits in the movie. Don't know what they were there for. Max's parole officer was a fairground dummy. Peculiar. I mean, I suppose it's emphasising the impersonality or the impersonal nature of bureaucracy. Like you tick a few wrong boxes and suddenly you're in trouble, and it's inflexible and stupid. And well, there you go. That's bureaucracy for you. Human systems are rubbish, basically. It's interesting that character looked very much like the Smilers of a Doctor Who episode of a couple of years or so back. And they also had kind of the same function. They were there to keep people in line. Maybe that's where the idea came from, I don't know. There's a point in the movie where Matt Damon's character Max is using a gun labelled chemrail. Makes me think of the chemtrail conspiracies, where people think that aircraft are spewing out poisonous chemicals, and I mean more poisonous than just plain old diesel pollution or something, or whatever it is they use, but proper chemicals to make us all docile or something. I don't believe that, by the way. And also on the back of Matt Damon's exoskeleton headset are the Russian letters D-E-S-T, Dest, which may be some sort of reference, I think, to District 9. I don't know. Dest. It sounds a bit like District. I don't know. Don't know what it means. Don't think it means anything as such. I think maybe some abbreviation. The movie doesn't suffer from many fatal flaws. I mean, most sci-fi movies do. This one does, but I mean, you can still enjoy it. The main problem with this movie is the concept behind data. The point of data. Well, data in this movie is critical. Matt Damon gets a fatal dose of radiation, and the only way he can get cured is to get onto the Elysium space station and use one of their magical high-technology medical bed things, a bit like a Star Trek bed or an MRI scanner. You just get in it and it sees what's wrong with you and zaps it all back to health again in a minute or so. So he's going to die. So he has to get up to the space station. So he goes to see his people-smuggling friend, Spider. And Spider gives him a job of stealing passwords and any other useful data from the brain of one of the elite. Spider gives him a little gadget to do this with. Now this elite person happens to be the boss of the factory where Matt Damon works and where he got his lethal radiation overdose. And so we know it's okay for him to use this gadget because Carlisle is a scumbag. Okay, so morally it's okay in sort of Hollywood style, simple-minded morality. Now what Matt Damon doesn't know is that Carlisle has been commissioned by the bad lady of Elysium to write a little change to Elysium's software, write a little program basically to reboot the space station's computers with a little change to the programming so that she, Delacourt, will be the new president. And all the machines, of course, will obey her and only her, rather than the currently elected presidents. Or maybe they're dictators, I don't know, or just wealthy people, but this is considered to be a bad thing. Anyway, so he writes the program, takes him about 5 minutes, whatever. He encrypts it and loads it into his brain, along with a rather strange defence mechanism. If it is downloaded from his brain without inputting the correct password, it will be fatal for him. So who cares? Right, okay. Anyway, it doesn't work anyway because Max manages to download it from his brain, and that doesn't kill him. A bullet kills him in a few minutes later. So scratch that defence mechanism. And isn't it encrypted? Well, Max can't read it, but he takes it to his friend Spider, who loads it onto the screen, and he can read it straight away. Oh, it's a program for rebooting Elysium. Oh, how strange. Isn't this program supposed to be encrypted? What? Anyway, so there you go, that's the basis of that. Another inconsistency is Max is fatally suffering from radiation, and yet he can with the help of an exoskeleton, okay, a fighting exoskeleton, can fight Kruger in some really tough fights, okay? Now, I don't know about you, if I was suffering from radiation sickness, I think I'd feel a bit ill. But anyway, he's a hero. Another issue really is the happy ending of the movie. Or so-called happy ending. It's kind of not all that happy. Max dies because Spider downloads the program from his brain and puts it into Elysium, and this time the defense mechanism works. That's ridiculous. And anyway, having seen the program, surely Spider could have written it himself in another 5 minutes and just done it and saved Max the trouble of dying. But anyway, obviously Max is going to be a saint, so that's a happy ending, right? And anyway, Spider reboots the computers and, with his own version of the program, makes himself the boss. A people smuggler, criminal, well, you know. Okay, I bought it when I was watching the movie and I felt good about it, yes. And everyone on Earth now becomes a legal citizen of Elysium, and the medical robots and spaceships start flying down to the Earth to start healing the people of the Earth. I'm sure there are plenty of resources available for that. It's kind of over-utopian and, not to say socialist, but whether it's socialist or capitalist in nature is actually irrelevant, because the point of the movie is that we are ruled by elites, and socialism and capitalism are just different methods of ruling us at the end of the day, keeping us under control. They make us think we can get rich or get somewhere in our lives, but they take it off us when we die through death duties, or we have to pay for medical services or something. Most people don't inherit much at the end of the day. They can't even save much when they're living hand to mouth, after all. But they rule us by force, and I think that's the point. The happy ending of the film didn't solve that problem, because Spider, being a criminal of criminal background, is going to use force pretty quickly, because the elite are going to not take this lying down, are they? They're going to get their guns together and they're going to come up and use force, right? So there's room for a sequel there, maybe. I suppose none of these objections are totally fatal. The movie was enjoyable. I mean, as an entertainment piece, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. Not many people are going to analyse it as thoroughly as I'm inclined to, but you know, when people write science fiction, can they spend 10 minutes and make it consistent? It's not that difficult. You know, write it on the back of 2 envelopes instead of 1, maybe. And maybe the director could hide his anti-elite messages a little more thoroughly. I mean, this is a bit obvious in this film, but maybe he doesn't care, and maybe the elite are standing on shaky ground, as some of the conspiracy theorists say. I don't know. But it's entertaining, well worth watching, especially if you're an action movie, sci-fi fan. Yeah, good. I mean, if you are looking for consistency, don't look to Hollywood, really. But if you're looking for an enjoyable, spectacular, then this is good. It's good. Matt Damon is a great action hero. Okay, bye for now.